So, good morning. Thank you so much. Today, I'm really honored because we have a brilliant man, Robert Stern, who has created a whole new model of business, not a not-for-loss, not a nonprofit, not a for-profit, but a zero budget company, which I want to learn about. And Robert, for those that are not familiar with yourself, and you have an illustrious career in media and journalism, and you've started, I think you mentioned four organizations. So briefly walk us through who is Robert Stern, and tell us a bit about the organization like See Through Network, See Through Carbon, and several of the others. I'm fascinated that you've created actually a totally purpose-driven organization that many want to be part of. And thank you for your time.
No, it's a pleasure. I mean, a lot of people are concerned about robots taking over the world, Robert, but it looks like it's robots that they're actually should have been worried about all along. Yeah. So I'm yeah, Robert Stern. So my own background, very briefly, is I've had a very zigzag career, but they've all been linked to the last one, often by language, actually. But I'm from London originally, uh, went to university to do politics and philosophy in Edinburgh, and ended up doing Chinese instead. This is in the 80s when that was about as um, popular as Sanskrit, and considered about as useful. Um, I could tell you that it was because I was incredibly prescient, and make myself look very smart, but that's not true. And I'm a big stickler for honesty and the truth and radical transparency. Um, so I, graduated with a degree in Chinese that no one was particularly interested in, and then spent 4 years. But people were very interested in the smattering of Japanese that I had, because of course that was the bubble economy years. So I got a job at the world's biggest company at the time, Itochu Trading. Not many people have heard of it outside of Japan, but it was when
No,
I
they're huge.
literally the biggest company in the world by turnover. I don't entirely take credit for that, obviously, but uh, trading textiles. So actually, my first job was in the schmutter trade, you could say, but Japanese version of it. And then, but I learned a lot then, not just Japanese, formal office Japanese, but also about business, about international trade, about globalization.
Just for clarification, when you say China, you were speaking Mandarin, not Cantonese.
Well, I studied Chinese, I mean, including classical Chinese actually, but I spent a year in China in 1984, 85, which was very formative
Whoa.
as well. Yeah. And I was last night I was listening to the great interview you did with the wonderful Isabel Hilton, who
Ah, yeah. She's
who
great.
studied Chinese at Edinburgh a few years before I did. But yeah, of course, that was literally during the Cultural Revolution, but the time we got to China, it was just afterwards. Um, so yeah, that was quite a formative experience. But yeah, but I've always been interested in, concerned about the environment. But of course, in the 80s, as a 20-year-old, that was an eccentric hobby. And progressively over the course of my lifetime, it's become a species level existential crisis. So really, I've always been trying to navigate as far as possible towards it. And then I've ended up doing this. But anyway,
What is this?
well, I'll just briefly finish my career, and
Okay.
we'll get to it because it may make sense of it a bit, right?
Okay. All right.
In that, so very briefly, first job trading textiles for 4 years for a multinational. I quit in '91 at the with the eccentric idea of moving to the world's most expensive city without a job to be an environmental consultant to major Japanese corporations.
Oh, okay.
And after a few weeks, realized I was maybe 25 years too early, and there were no such jobs. So I fell into journalism and worked for ABC News in Tokyo, American ABC News, and then basically spent the 90s looking at Asia through American eyes. So ABC News in Tokyo, CNBC Asia in Hong Kong as a business journalist. Then I was the Shanghai bureau chief for NBC Asia in the mid-90s. And the last time anyone paid me a salary was the late 90s when I was a CNN Beijing bureau producer and reporter.
Mhm.
And then had a young family, moved back to Britain, changed career again to documentary filmmaking, which might not sound like a very big leap from news, but actually, had I
It
known
is.
what a big leap it is, I probably wouldn't have done it with a young family and mouths to feed. But anyway, I worked out a way to do that, and basically spent much of the next 10 years looking at Europe through Japanese eyes, because I was making a lot of documentaries for NHK, Japanese Public Broadcasting. And basically getting into the Japanese mindset and looking at Europe and finding stories that interested them, and did that. And then that dried up. And I was also doing bits of consulting and teaching and workshops and stuff for BBC, and training Eastern European journalists to in BBC values after the fall of the Berlin Wall. That was kind of interesting. And then the NHK teat ran dry, and I had to spend the next 10 years pretty much trying to work out how to continue to make a living as a creative in an industry that was being destroyed by the internet,
Mhm.
like all creative industries, and had some interesting, I was a pioneer in crowdfunding, for example, early adopter of that. So at one point, my production company had two of the UK's top 5 crowdfunded documentaries.
Wow.
And at this point, I was being invited to do master classes because everyone was very interested in, needless to say, because independent documentary filming is the beggingest business there is, which may also inform what I'm doing now and why I'm doing it this way now I think about it.
Mhm.
But anyway, that well ran dry as well. And anyway, about 5 years ago, I decided my kids were growing up. Um, I decided I had enough money. I might be wrong about that, but I can always earn some more if I need to. And in the meantime, in the background, everything had been getting worse and worse and worse environmentally. And I made films about green topics and this, and you broadcast them, they go out, and what impact do they have?
Sure.
And so this is where maybe where our worlds overlap a bit. And impact, I think there's a different meaning in a financial context, but of course, what we're all trying to do is somehow to stop talking and start measuring, basically. I mean, impact implies measurement, right? Um,
True.
and that's how, yeah, I initially wanted to do something local, and then it immediately got a lot, maybe because of my, global kind of background, it got rather more ambitious, which is where we are now. Yeah. So
And where are we now with the four not even not for losses, but the zero budget companies?
they're a budget company. Yes. So, I mean, they are all legal entities. They're companies. So they are registered. If you look them up on Companies House, they exist. So we can enter into contractual.
So the UK tax authorities, oh my God, here comes Robert Stern again with his annual report with zero income and zero expenses.
Well, we do have one of our our accountant volunteer. I mean, everyone's volunteering, of course, or working pro bono, if you want to put it in a fancy way. Um, but he's a very experienced accountant, and he's a trustee on lots of charities and advises, on tax related to that. But I think he always slightly dreads slash welcomes my phone calls, because I basically, yeah, explaining how we want to pay as much tax as we can, but the problem is we don't have any revenue.
Right. Yeah, of course. Of course.
But anyway, it's always an interesting challenge for him. So anyway, they're legal entities. But so in 2021, the first one was See Through News,
Okay.
which is sort of journalistic outreach education and more aligned to what I had been doing.
Hmm.
And then a year later, we set up See Through Games, which is online, real world and online games. And then a year later, in 2023, we set up See Through Carbon, which is a carbon reporting ecosystem, measuring carbon footprints, but publicly making them transparent. This is the key point. And then last year, 2024, See Through Together, which is social media, audio, visual content. And what they all have in common, they may seem very diverse, but they all share the same goal. This is the key thing. This is what is it that we do? 10 words. Speeding up carbon drawdown
Hmm.
by helping the inactive become active.
You're talking about at the consumer level.
Any level.
So
So
it's not, you're not talking about uh, Microsoft working with a large multinational. You're talking about individual people.
nope,
No,
I'm talking
okay.
about both.
Okay.
Actually, the key thing is, so this is where carbon accounting is quite useful, I think. If you think of, we're all familiar with the concept of carbon footprints, although, of course, as people now know, the first one was developed by BP as a greenwashing tool to transfer
Mhm.
responsibility from corporate to individual level, but it's still a useful concept. So basically, any entity from an individual to the whole species generates emissions.
Yeah.
It's what we do. And you can do an audit at any level, at an individual, household, SME, multinational, country level,
Hmm.
and it's just physics, right? It's just you enter values for Brazil, the number of zeros would be bigger than
Hmm.
Rubinstein's family, but the principle is the same. You look at the activities that generate emissions, you come up with a value, you multiply that by a conversion factor, and you add it up. That's your carbon footprint. So actually, one of the things we're really trying to bring people's attention to is it's really very simple, and it's just physics. So that's the first half of the goal, speeding up carbon drawdown. Although even in those 4 words, it hints at the devious methodology we have, which is the second part of it, which is by helping the inactive become active. So basically, the first part is hard science, it's just physics, carbon measuring
And
carbon.
who developed your methodology for calculating your carbon footprint or your carbon emissions?
Okay, so that's the see-through carbon element of it. I mean, we have carbon accounting experts. It's actually
Oh, okay.
simpler than people realize. It's the GHGP, the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which
Hmm.
is the basis used for, the UN was involved in developing it originally. 97% of all reporting mechanisms use it. Uh, it's not as watertight as financial accounting, of course, but this,
Oh, there's lots of fraud in financial accounting too.
but it's designed to. But the difference is, of course, and we often say this, if the alien were to come and we were to show him around the planet, give him a week to work out what's going on, the question might well be, it seems to me that the dominant species here values something they made up 5,000 years ago more than something they've been made of for 2.5 billion years. Is this
Mhm.
correct? And you have to say, bang on, yes, that's exactly the problem. So we've got this very elaborate system. Well, you have to have an elaborate system for financial accounting because it's an idea, it's a myth, it's a stack of cards. And if one bit doesn't add up, the whole thing falls apart.
So people, a company, a country can look at their carbon impact, and then you try to engage them to be less carbon emitting.
Okay, so the key thing about see-through carbon is its scope is extremely limited, and this is its strength. So actually, we didn't intend to do it when we started out because I've been looking at, I consider myself quite literate as a journalist on these matters. But it was only after 2 years of doing see-through news that I realized quite how woefully inadequate carbon accounting was. And
Mm,
the MBA course, first lesson, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, right?
mm.
So here we are talking about reducing carbon and decarbonizing this and that. We're not even measuring it properly. you know, it's like let's get that right first. So here's the thing that about, and again, you've had experts on your show who know a lot more about the technicalities of this than many, but I think part of the problem is they make it sound far more complicated than it is. I mean,
No, I mean you can make it really complicated, but you have a lot of abuse, particularly if you look at climate tech funds like Climeworks. This is a nonsense. This is basically taking a shot glass to the North Sea and say you're going to move it one at a time. And they actually admitted we produce more CO2 than we draw down. And I spoke to a big institutional investor who put in, they raised $1 billion, €1 billion. And I spoke to one of the investors. I said, dude, your focus now is nature-based solution and prevention of climate and addressing carbon drawdown. So, and you know that Climeworks is not going to impact anything in the short term. They'll do an IPO. He said, yeah, we know. We know.
So, well, this is something you struggle with as well, which is why I'm very curious to hear your response to the way we explain it as well. Because
Okay.
know the problem. We just got a different way. So that essentially this speeding up carbon drawdown by helping the inactive become active. The first bit is hard science. The second bit is sophisticated storytelling.
Right.
This is more. So we in the network, we don't just have IT, AI, carbon accounting specialists. We've got filmmakers, musicians, storytellers, advertisers, behavioral psychologists. So we've known the problem and the reality and of human-induced climate change for 50 years.
Mhm.
We've had the solutions to deal with it for 50 years, but
Yeah.
emissions are still rising.
Yeah.
So the problem is not the stat bashing. This is the problem with the Greta Thunberg, just listen to the scientist approach. If only it was simple, right? The
Yeah.
problem is we are squidgy, sweating, uh, evolved primates who have evolved an evolution strategy which is founded on moderated neophobia, fear of the new, and we don't like change much. So it's very hard to move people. This is why the second half, to help the inactive become active. The default is we keep doing what we're doing, and what we're doing is disastrous. So you've got to be quite smart to nudge people and tell good stories to nudge people from that to something else. And what you can't do is offer sacrifice. You've got to
Yeah,
offer.
absolutely. That is absolutely the key. The mistake everyone made is they kept talking about sacrifice and not about resilience. And you're not going to sell anything. So I got to give up something. What do you mean give up something?
Well, I mean, you've obviously come to that conclusion through your own journey. Mine can tell you, I've made documentaries about, whenever I can, this is in a commercial sphere, so I had to sell the idea to people. But
Mhm.
a lot of the documentaries I've made about individuals, green heroes, to put it broadly,
Mhm.
I kind of realize what they all have in common is their biggest, the people who piss them off the most are the deep greens,
Yeah.
not actually the corporations, because the people who present sustainability, a sustainable lifestyle, as a penance, a sacrifice, are
Yeah.
doing more harm than good.
Right.
And so I've made documentaries about, I don't know if these names will mean anything to your audience. Guy Watson, the guy who founded Riverford Organics, brilliant
Hmm.
guy, absolutely brilliant. Uh, door delivered organic veg box scheme, but he managed to scale it. I mean, from a business point of view, it was brilliant. But absolutely maintained his ethics and integrity result. And that's the story. That's one of the reasons why people buy his stuff, other than it's delicious. It's the integrity that they're buying, and that makes them feel better,
Hmm.
even if they do have to, wash the mud off the knobbly carrots that aren't perfect in the supermarket. He's presented that as a good thing, not as a problem.
Right. Sure.
Who else? Ben Law, who a lot of people in Britain know. There's a show called Grand Designs, an architectural show.
Mm.
Most popular ever episode. And I say this as a TV person. So for those who haven't seen Grand Design, it's been running for 25 years or something. And it's one of the first property TV formats. And it's always the same thing. So you have usually a delusional middle class couple or person. It's this dream house, and then it follows the building of it.
Mhm.
And it's basic from a storytelling point of view, because bear in mind, TV is all about getting people to watch beyond the ad break. And it's car crash TV, basically, because it's all about people falling behind budget and schedule and that kind of thing. And there've been, I don't know, 300 plus episodes. The most popular ever episode, as voted by the presenter and the audience multiple times, is the one about the man who built his house in the woods. And
Mm.
this is Ben Law. This is the guy I then made my film about, and actually then spent a year filming the life, the woodland year cycle, because he was a coppicing woodsman in Sussex, who was managing these sweet chestnut coppice, living in a tent, basically, in his workplace. And this is in the commuter belt. This is very expensive property around London, right, in the home counties. And he decided he wanted to have a family and kids, and they needed a house to live in. Not an unreasonable concept.
No.
And so he built one. And this is what this episode followed. And everyone remembers it. You can talk to any British person and say, do you remember the man who built his house and there was off Grand Designs? Everyone's seen it. It's incredible. And what they remember about it is, and from a TV point of view, what's interesting to me is out of those 300 programs, it was the only one with zero jeopardy because he built it exactly to budget. I think it was about £30,000 to build a house. And he was, I think, £280 over because he forgot to account for one window, or something. But he built it from materials he could see around him in a way that hadn't been done for 200 years. He got his mates to do it.
Okay.
It's incredibly beautiful. And the point is, to come back to the original point, you watch him, you hear him talk, and you think, God, that looks better than what I'm doing. I wish I could.
So you try to, through storytelling, inspire you. First, you give a baseline. This is where you are. People can see where their carbon intensity is. And then you provide solutions that resonate with people of how they can be more proactive in addressing their carbon emissions.
But you do have to you've always got to think of your audience. And in this case, the ground is uneven and it's somewhat polluted.
Oh, yeah.
In the
No
sense,
question. No question.
you've got the status quo and big oil who want to keep on drilling.
Yeah, yeah.
And they have been spending billions. They hire the best storytellers in the world who've
Yeah.
been polluting people's minds and
Yeah.
very subtle ways. They're very good at it.
No, sure.
But instead of complaining about it, we're learning from them. So there is an asymmetry, learn from the best. They're fantastic. The way, that whole carbon calculator thing by BP in 2000, brilliant idea, and highly cynical, but you got to hand it to them.
So you give examples of simple everyday solutions that people, companies, countries can implement.
It's more subtle than that, actually, because what we do, the methodology is what we call transparent Trojan horse.
Okay.
So we're completely open. So the whole network is based on the principle of radical transparency, because whatever the problem is, the solution tends to be transparency.
Right.
In life in general, but definitely when it comes to climate issues. And but the problem is, if you take the Greta Thunberg approach, much as I admire her, I don't want to bash her because I think it's very important that people like her exist. But the point of failure is, has she changed any minds?
No, I mean,
one from inactive. In fact, there's a lot of evidence suggests that she's entrenched.
yeah, for sure. Yelling at, beating up children only makes them serial killers.
Well, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. So this comes down to why is it called see-through network? This is we put a lot of thought into the branding of it. Again, we had some very clever advertising people behind this program, this process. We spent months trying to find the brand. The reason it doesn't have the word green or nature or sustainable, any of those, right, is a storytelling trick. Because if you include any of those names in your brand, people have already made up their mind about it. This is why activists whose goal is raising awareness or educating, I think it's ineffective and futile because people already know. The problem is they have entrenched views on it, and as soon as they hear those trigger words, they stop listening, one way or the other. They've made up their minds. They don't want to be lectured. They just want to get on with their lives. They've got other things going. So you've got to be more subtle than that. You've got to present them with something that they want and like. And then that's the beginning of a journey that ends up where you want to get them. But you've got to be patient and take your time. So actually, this was in a way the origin story of the whole see-through network. So when back in 2020, 21, this is all during lockdown and all that, when I sort of emerged, I think it changed a lot of people's minds. Then I decided, all right, I'm going to stop trying to make a living. and do something, but I didn't know what. I had, all these these decades of my own personal experience that had informed my thinking. But I thought, okay, well, I'll join the Green Party. And there were local elections coming up, and within 10 days, they said, "Would you want to stand as a candidate?" And this is just in Salisbury.
Oh,
So I said, "Yeah, sure." I mean, this relationship lasted 10 days, in
okay.
mutual consent. But in those 10 days, I had a great insight. So if you stand in the middle of, it's an old market town, Salisbury, Market Square, and I say this as someone who's done thousands and thousands of vox pops as a TV reporter and producer over the decades, all over the world. I have a kind of pretty developed sense when I see someone come around a corner 100 meters away, if I can get them to stop and talk and go on camera or not, right? It's just something about their body language, whatever.
Mm.
And if you stand in the middle of Salisbury Marketplace, where people are coming and going the whole time with a green rosette on for the Green Party,
Mm.
you can tell as soon as someone comes around the corner, and they do one of two things. As soon as they see you, they either divert their route towards you to talk to you, and these are definitively the people you don't need to talk to,
Mm.
and it's a waste of every breath you spend on them is wasted because they already agree with you, or they see the green rosette and walk away from you.
Mm.
Definitively the people you do need to talk to.
Right.
So what's the problem? It's the bloody rosette, right? So if you advertise yourself from the beginning, if all they know about you is green,
Okay.
they walk away. So that's why it's see-through. It's literally transparent. It tells you nothing.
But do you feel you started this 3, 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
5 years ago now, yeah.
5 years ago. Um, as, as a friend of mine used to say in New York, are you doing good? Are you getting somewhere?
Right. Well, the first thing is how would we know? And the metric that we use, and we're very strict on ourselves, is the same one that climate scientists use. Metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent reduced or sequestered, CO2e.
Okay. But you're
This is
working mainly in the UK, in the UK, right?
mainly, but globally.
But
So
most of the people engage on your system or your platform are UK based.
most of them, but by no means all. I mean, we've if you look on the C2 Carbon website articles, we've just appointed our director of government relations. Uganda is one of Uganda's 3 COP negotiators, and we've got a very active team in Uganda. We've got social media reach all over the world. The model that we have for getting people's attention,
Mm.
which is very cunning as well, which I can go into if you
Mm.
want. We've got 1 million people around the world, about 70% in the UK, but also in South Africa, Australia, the Philippines.
Do they sign up for your platform?
They don't. This is the
Oh,
story. This is the methodology. What they sign up to is a local community Facebook group to help them.
oh, okay. Okay. So you leverage off of Facebook.
So what we're doing is we're jujitsu. So the one thing about this is how, you wanted to ask how we do it without a bank account.
Yeah.
One way we do it is uh, say what you like about our Silicon Valley overlords, and everyone is now more conscious of the transaction of the data we're giving them.
Mm.
The fact is they provide free infrastructure.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So we're just jujitsuing that to reduce carbon instead of further enrich them.
Okay, here's an example. I'm Donald Trump,
Yeah.
and for some reason I end up on your Facebook page either through a hashtag or something. And how do you convince me?
Right. Okay. Bear with me here because if it was simple, someone would be doing it already. Um, let's not take Donald Trump. Let's take Robert Rubinstein, okay? Or your neighbor.
Nigel
Actually, not you.
Farage or
Actually,
whatever his name is.
not you, because it's not. There's no point. People like Farage and Trump are not going to be influenced directly. They're just power brokers, right?
Yeah.
So they will be moved if it's in their interest to move. And they won't do it
True.
spontaneously. And the people paying them at the moment are the people who have the vested interest in the status quo. So
Right.
they're not our target. We're targeting, in this case, ordinary people.
Okay.
So I'll give you the example. Salisbury, where it started in Wiltshire, near Stonehenge, market town, ancient market town with a cathedral, population of 41,500, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We set up a Facebook group there 4 years ago called Salisbury Notice Board.
Okay.
And basically its function for all its users is what the classified ads in the old local papers used to be. So if you're looking,
Okay.
so basically about a third to a quarter of the members are local businesses, local SMEs, and the rest are local residents. And they're local roofers advertising their products, their services, and they're local people saying, can you recommend a good roofer or a primary school or whatever? It's just that. But this is what Facebook is really good at, right?
Mhm.
And the only thing that those people have in common is their postcode.
Right.
You'll have leavers and remainers and middle class and upper class and lower class, anyway, but they all need a roof, right?
Right.
So this is a perfect demographic if you want to shift large groups of people. But you've got to win their attention, interest, and trust first.
Sure.
The number of members of that notice board group, which is administered by C3 News and has the logo on it. So every time they use that group, which they
Okay.
has the brand recognition there, right? But it doesn't tell them anything about green because this is too early, right? We've got to get their trust first and prove that we're useful. So would you like to hazard a guess of the membership of that group now? Bearing in mind that the population of Salisbury,
5,000.
It's about 43,000.
But there are 43,000 living there.
There are 41,000 living there.
41.
It's about 105% of the total population. How is that possible? It's possible because obviously not everyone in Salisbury uses Facebook, but it's a market town surrounded by villages, and there are lots of businesses that and people living there in both. So it can be more than 100% of the population. This has worked not just in, so that was the model one, but we've got the same thing working in 100% isn't even the maximum.
You're working on a very local area and empowering this community, but you're not addressing, the thing that everyone says needs to be done. Products need to reflect their true cost. A bicycle is 21% or 25% VAT, airline ticket, 0 VAT. So the policy element is not part of this.
It is, but it's a few steps down the line. The first thing you've got to do is so advertisers call it AIDA, right? Attention, interest, desire, action. So that's when they're talking about selling Coke bottles, right? Attention, you've got to get people's attention. It's a noisy world out there. That's what the Facebook groups are for. It's just step one. Then you've got to develop an interest, a desire for action, and then deliver the means for that action. So I'll give you an example of how we're going to use it. So we're now in a position, so this has been replicated all over the world. So we got a team of about 2 or 3 dozen volunteer moderators who moderate. The total membership of these groups around the world is more than 1 million. Real people. This isn't like Facebook,
No. I get it.
These are real people who have a trusting relationship with our brand. Now, at the moment, all we've done for them is provide an incredibly convenient local service. But ours is better than everyone else's because there are many other such groups, but they're all run by local businesses to promote their own and, denigrate their competition, and people recognize this. Over time, people move to ours. So there are places, we got a group in Ireland, which has more than 250% of the total population, and one in South Africa, in Johannesburg, right? This model works everywhere. Shouldn't be surprising.
So you feel that you need to engage at the community level to be able to go to the next step of trying to get policy changed?
That's just one way of doing it. But let me finish explaining how the method, because it is quite convoluted.
Sorry, I was told to interrupt you a lot by somebody.
No. I told you that. But so let me this is one way of doing it. So, but the hard bit, and this is where activists who only focus on activism fall down.
Right.
Good storytellers, and they don't understand this. And this, maybe you need filmmakers or advertisers, people who have that mindset to marry these two things together. I'll give you the first experiment we did to test whether it was worth investing all this time and energy in gaining the trust of 1 million people around the world was, I think, last Christmas. So we started putting posts in these groups, and as admin, if we post it, it gets seen by roughly twice as many people as if anyone else did. So we've got a marginal advantage here. And it was called, we called the campaign, I'm Dreaming of a Green Christmas. Now, you will notice it used the word green, right? So this is the first attempt to try and take these people for whom we're just a community Facebook group and nudge them a bit further towards, explicitly towards a environmental goal. And all it did, it was a kind of chatty post saying, you know, we did it in November, so around this time of year, actually. We're recording, you know, the end of October. In fact, we should start doing it again because we got far more people now than we did last time. And it's just a post to one of these groups saying, God, are you thinking about going about and buying another Christmas tree? And for the next like 6 weeks, it's going to be taking up half your living room. It's going to cost you 50 quid. It'll be shedding all over the place, and then you're going to burn it, and then you've got to get rid of it again. Anyway, and then you've got a few images of beautiful Christmas tree decorations. They're flat on the wall, made from bamboo or twigs, or you know, just very creative things that the shape of a Christmas tree, but more attractive, take up less space.
Yeah.
You just put them side by side. So you say, and lots of people are thinking with a bit of, you know, heavy heart, oh God, Christmas tree. And you say, well, why not do this? All right. But this is only the first step. Has it reduced carbon or not? Not yet, right? Not yet. But bear with me. So we can then measure the impact of that in this way. Included in that ad is a link, a bit.ly link that we can measure. And kind of, if you want to know more about this, click here. And this takes us out of the Silicon Valley overlords environment onto our website, which we can control, right? And now the journey is a bit more controlled. So then we have not too many steps, but you can't jump straight there because then
So the soldiers are coming out of the Trojan horse now.
You got it. You got it. But there is also an article that explains everything I'm explaining to you, if you bother to read it, but most people don't. So
yeah, of course.
You do, right? But it is important that we do publish those articles because we want to be challenged on radical transparency at every
Yeah,
point.
you should post the article to the weekly. I'll send you the link.
Sure.
And that goes to, you know, 70,000, but mainly in the financial sector.
Sure. But I mean, I'll maybe, I mean, we've got dozens and dozens of them. I'll try and think of the best one for audience.
Okay.
But I'll just talk this one through because it explains the mechanism, which is convoluted, I admit, but we can measure it. This is the point. So what we want, I'll tell you the end point, and then maybe you can fill in the in-between gaps or ask me about them if you want. The end point is we want them to email their MP and the Ministry of
Okay.
right, but it's not a raising awareness email. They're useless. And you know, someone who studied politics a lot and knows many politicians and has talked to the young people who work in their offices, I know how it works in Britain, for example. It's the same in most democracies, and not that dissimilar in autocracies like China, for example, in fact. But here's the thing. And the beauty of it is it doesn't matter which party you're from, and especially like America, this is quite an attractive thing because everything seems to be bipartisan. Oh, apologies. Sorry, I should have disabled that.
No worries.
Right, where were we? Yes, so what we want to do is to send them this kind of email. So one thing that all politicians have in common is they want to get re-elected, right? That's it. No matter what party, right? So let's take that as that's the weak point. So that's what you got to do, focus on. So our email goes like this. Dear insert member of parliament here, copied to the minister responsible. This is the big template. In the upcoming parliamentary session, the following bill will be debated. Insert name of bill here. At the moment, insert section name here, does not include the following, insert what we call a TOLC, a tightly worded legal clause here. And then that's the actual legal clause. If included and implemented, this clause would reduce an estimated number of gigatons of CO2e over what period? Insert.
Okay.
Your vote on this is a binary matter of public record. If you vote to include this tightly worded legal clause, my family, friends, and I will all consider voting for you again at the next election. If you don't, we definitely won't. Yours sincerely.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. So that's the soldiers are out, the Trojan horse, you're slashing and burning the politician's office and threatening him that we will kill you and or basically you won't get reelected if you don't submit to the will of the people.
Exactly. And in that case, of course, we're so I'm just going to turn my phone off because that wasn't very in that case, it's a threat. And where do we focus most? On marginal constituencies, people who just want
Okay. Okay. Very strategic.
completely. We're utterly, I mean, we're highly pragmatic. If any of this sounds ideological, we're utterly pragmatic. And
Yeah.
the way we can do that is by not using money or clicks or likes as an outcome, but metric tons of CO2e reduced. Now, in this case, how can we justify it? So the TWLC, in this case, this letter would be, we haven't actually done it, we're just testing the processes now, but you
Sure.
can see how this is broadly applicable for any given thing. So we've got people interested in this by talking about Christmas trees. That's not what it's about at all. What it's about is this. And if you explain it this way, no one pays attention. People's eyes glaze over, apart from people who are interested like you and hopefully your audience. So here are the facts about what's going on in Britain at the moment. Britain is Europe's third baldest country.
Baldest?
Baldest in terms of forest cover.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. And this is shocking to most British people. We look outside, we see trees, we think we're a green country. I think it's something like 13% forest cover. Ireland and Malta are lower, no one else. Finland is like 80%. Most,
Yeah.
Germany and France are 40, 50% plus. It's quite shocking to most British people. And we all love trees, right? So if you tell people that, they'll go, oh, that's bad. It should be better. And they say, oh, the government has a plan. Oh, good. It's like, oh, yeah, but listen to the plan. They have a plan to increase forest cover by 2050. I may have got the numbers wrong for this, but get the idea. By 2050 or some very distant point to 18%. And everyone kind of goes, oh, well, that's not very ambitious. How much did you say Finland was? You say, oh, but we're not, it's been running for several years, but we're not even halfway there. Often we don't even get a third of it. We need to plant like 30,000 hectares a year of trees. We're not even doing half or a third of that. Oh, and then people are engaged, right? It's the way you tell the story, right? And what's the problem? They keep asking you the problem rather than you telling them. This is the storytelling trick, right? And they go, oh, well, seeing as you ask, in order to plant trees, you need three things. You need land, and whoever owns the land to want to do it.
Right.
You need the economic incentives for them to do it. And then people usually stop there. But there's a third thing, a really obvious thing that you need. You get people to guess. Most people can't guess. What's the third thing you need to plant trees? You need trees. You need
Yeah.
saplings, right?
Yeah.
Incredibly, in Britain, the bottleneck is not the first thing, the landowners, nor the incentives, nor the second thing. It's the third thing. We don't have enough saplings to plant to meet this measly target.
Oh, really?
Extraordinary, right? But what we do have is 296 members of the British Christmas Tree Growers Association, who are literally nurseries that grow trees.
Right.
So if instead of paying them to grow trees that 3-4 years that we then burn within 6 weeks, and there was an act of parliament to nudge things. This is what the TWLC tightly worded legal clause would be. It wouldn't even cost any more money. You just have to redirect incentives and this and that to say, they don't want to grow Christmas trees. They're not elves. They're business people in the business of growing trees. If you incentivize them to grow more trees to be planted to meet our target, that's a good thing, right? So if you explain it that way, but you've got to take people along the journey at every stage. And that is how you get from a Facebook group in, Salisbury to changing government legislation, which is the only thing that reduces carbon at scale.
So it's very long-term farming, not hunting.
Yes.
Okay. Two ideas that you might find interesting. Maybe you heard of them. You have cap and trade idea of,
Yes.
reducing it. But then there was another one saying we basically need to empower all of the consumers through a cap and share with a carbon allowance. So everybody gets an X amount of tons per year in their wallet. And if you ride your bike, you can earn credits. If you use public transit, you can earn credit. If you use your SUV, you probably have to pay for that. And then I was speaking to a Swiss guy who's going even a step further and actually making traction. He basically is engaging with the Swiss government to tell them that create a border tax on CO2 intensive products and services, and products and services created in Switzerland that will have to pay high fee. But all of the money that would be collected in Trump's tariff idea doesn't go to the government. It
Yeah.
goes into a fund, and that fund is divided equally among all citizens in the country, equally.
There
So that
are a
so
lot of
take
great examples of that happening. I mean, it isn't theoretical. So Canada basically did that, right, with the cap and trade thing. China had done the individual wallet thing. I don't know how much you know about that. They've been running that, especially in certain provincial places, for years now. And you get, discounts from your school fees and stuff
oh, okay,
based
okay.
on your individual carbon
Yeah,
footprint.
because you speak Mandarin, so you're able to read the news and the newspapers and keep up to date on what's going on over there.
Well, I mean, I can. I don't have much time for it now. But if required, I can do. But I keep in touch a lot with China because the end game, whatever we're doing and whatever success we have, you want to do it in the country that produces 30% of the world's emissions.
Okay.
And
So
that's the ultimate goal, is to affect change there.
so you're basically like um the green FSB. You're kind of infiltrating people, planting seeds, not disinformation, real information to get people to create either, organized chaos with the intention of changing the system so that it's more carbon benign.
And the key, I mean, I'll take green FSP and use it in some promotional material.
Sure, okay, go ahead.
I have to be careful where, but the key point that we're making, and this again goes back to the origin story, really, is government regulation.
Yeah.
So one of the first things we did, so COP26 was the first one, in the one in Glasgow in 21 after
Hmm.
COVID and the lockdown one. So we'd been going for about 6 months by then, and we wanted to test some of these things in principle there. So we went up there and were there for 2 weeks. And one of the things that we were testing is basically gamification of Project Drawdown's table of solutions.
Right,
And I think this is a really good example of what we're trying to do and how we complement what other people are doing.
right.
So Project Drawdown, for those who don't know,
Yeah,
is, I think it was what, 2015 or something, set up, something like that in New York. Fantastic organization of basically the world's top scientists,
yeah, yeah.
boffins and bean counters. And they have come up with, they basically categorized all the different things that we could do to reduce
Right,
carbon,
sure.
and with loads and loads of footnotes if you wanted the details, but there is a table of solutions, as they call it. And of course, you can slice and dice it a different way, but it's, like if you only take recycling or high-speed trains or tropical rainforest preservation or utility scale photovoltaics or whatever, and we were to do this, how many gigatons of carbon would that reduce by 20,
Right.
2100? And it's a table, a searchable table. But, and this is the problem with these guys, last time I looked, it took 3 or 4 clicks from landing on their website to see this table of solutions.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
I mean, it's hopeless, absolutely hopeless.
Yeah, it's also there's a lot of ego in that project.
No doubt, no doubt. But the result is, so one of the things that we do is we focus absolutely on outcomes, not on motivations.
Mm. Have you
Because
have you ever researched Professor Ratan Lal?
I've heard that
He's
name.
an interesting guy. He was like the mentor to Al Gore, and basically he's a soil scientist.
Yeah.
And he said in various videos, if you restore the health of the soil and the vegetation, you can draw down 330 gigatons, which dwarfs any of the other initiatives, but
Yeah.
there's no 10x and there's no upside for investors, which is why none of them are putting money into restoring the health of the soil or vegetation or, marginally in nature-based solutions.
So the point we make, so we've got, I said see through games was the second we did things. There are three games: the think game, the learn game, and the act game.
Okay.
The act game is the one I described to you, is the transmit. Once you got people to the point of wanting to, the action bit of desire, attention, interest, desire, action, that's the action.
Is that from Glengarry Glen Ross, the movie?
Talk to advertising people.
Okay, yeah.
They're always going on about
There, you should watch that. There's a scene where he talks exactly about
I
that.
know it. I know it. I could quote from it. I probably just did. No, exactly. This is what sales guys know. And this is
Yeah.
why we have those kind of guys in our organization, because you got to listen to them. They know what they're talking about. And, but in order to get people to that point, and, actually, I should think about using Glengarry Glen Ross as a model for this, because it would work. What's the process? And he describes it, right? You got some schmuck walks in the door. How do you get them to buy this, dodgy property? So that's the action. That's the last bit. Working backwards. In order to act, you've got to know. In order to know, you've got to learn. In order to learn, you've got to think. In order to think, you've got to be titillated. You've got to be entertained.
Okay.
So the think game is a gamified thing with no right and wrong answers, but with time pressure and a countdown clock, and we got all our TV entertainment people to do it. It works brilliantly. There's dozens and dozens of examples of it on the website I can put links to. So very briefly, what we do is you say, okay, I'm going to fire 60, you've got 60 seconds. I'm going to fire 15 names at you. I want you to give me a number. That's all I want you to give me. No right or wrong answers. Numbers entirely up to you. You just got to score whatever person, institution, any country I give you, whatever the name is, between 0 and 10, where 0 is the worst green credentials and 10 is the best. Now, what that scale is completely up to you. All right, ready, go. And then you've got the countdown noise, headphones. It's all very intensive in game show. Everyone loves it, right? And you're throwing, you sort of say, okay, well, we could kind of play it now. Okay, sorry. You remember, you've only got like maximum of 4 seconds to reply to this. So you go. So the first two is all right. So Donald Trump, 0 to 10. Go on, let's play.
What am I supposed to say about Donald
So you've got to
Trump?
give me a number between 0 and 10 for whatever name I say, where 0 is the worst carbon.
Oh, okay, okay.
And or green. So Donald Trump,
2,
Greta Thunberg,
6.
Napoleon Bonaparte,
I have no idea. 5.
Brazil,
Brazil, still 5.
Pepsi Cola,
4.
Elvis Costello. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm just throwing these random things to you. And then the last one, and when the music's got
Okay, okay.
the last one is you, right?
Right.
Now, this is playing on a lot of, in 60 seconds, this plays on a lot of game show tropes, right? We love being judgmental about other people. We love, comparing, we love being right. Anyway, that's the think game, right?
Okay.
But
But
what
this is an incredible amount of work.
we've got people to do it, and we have massive amounts of data from it. So
No, I understand that, but coordinating, getting them,
yeah,
cajoling them. I
I'm a
think the
TV
biggest
producer.
challenge is how did you convince your wife that giving up your paying gig and doing this, not for loss, zero budget is a good idea?
Good question. I tried to, and then she divorced me, seeing as you ask.
It's a
Um,
painful story, sorry.
yeah. Well, there may have been other factors involved,
Yeah,
but actually deciding not to earn any more money was definitely part of it.
yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so the think game, but so what that's designed to do, and it works every single time, is people say, I'm not sure if, because actually that's just the quantitative data we're getting. The qualitative data is you keep the camera rolling, and then, as the tension, then you keep asking them questions. You say, so how did that go? Oh, God, that was so stressful. You say, well, and then, so would you change any of the answers now? And they say, well, I don't know if I got that one right or wrong. What's the right answer? I said, we told you there's no right or wrong answers. It's just your opinion. They said,
Right.
but I feel I should know. I said, oh, you want to play the learn game, right? So they've asked you to play the learn game. This is the storytelling trick, right?
Okay,
And
but this is
and the
this
learn
is
game is gamifying the table of solutions. So
the, I admire. I mean, I understand what you're doing, as this green FSB guy who plays the long game. I mean, I jokingly say that, but actually, I was once invited to a conference that was funded by the Russian FSB, and I was wondering why are they throwing all this money for this, organization, this nonprofit in Czech Republic, and spending so much money and inviting all these people from around the world, and they're playing the long game of infiltrating behavior to get people, on their side. So you're also playing the long game for the right reasons to get people to embrace a more carbon benign lifestyle.
again, bear in mind my background. I've learned from the best. I reported for CNN on China in China, right?
Okay.
You learn in terms of manipulating people long term. You've got to learn. Of course, there is an asymmetry in resources
Sure,
in
sure,
the big
sure.
oil, and that they have billions of
Mm,
dollars and can hire the best storytellers in the world. But there's an asymmetry. The key one is that they're lying and we're not.
yeah.
And over time, they can't defy the laws of physics. And
No,
we're
I mean, it is long-term farming, and I'm encouraged by some signs, but at the same time, I see where the money flows go, still into stupid EVs that scoop up all of this money that's super carbon intensive, and cars are parked 80 to 90% of the day, and they only travel, 40 kilometers on average worldwide, and the US less than 50% less than six. So all of that money's going in there, investment, 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 not into public transport infrastructure, which is much more carbon benign.
so the key point of the when we come to the learn game, the table of solutions, is you get people. I mean, a long story. I mean, I can post links as to how you play it, but what we're doing is gamifying it. So we're getting people to beg us by the end of it, tell us what are the top 5 things that we can do to measurably reduce carbon. And we did this at COP26 and other places. So we've done it in places where. So here's an interesting question for you. We played this game with the world's most active climate activists gathered in Glasgow for COP26, and with ordinary Glaswegian citizens. What, if any, would you predict would be the difference in data set between these two cohorts in terms of their evaluation of Donald Trump or any of these Pepsi Cola, whatever? No idea, right?
No.
That means it's a good question. We have the answers. That's the data we collected. Anyway, but the point is, when we get people to look at the learn game solutions, that's all of this is an elaborate way to get them to ask them this question is here's the top 20. How many of them could you influence yourself directly by your individual behavioral change? And the answer is 2 out of 20, and they're quite low down. All the others require government regulation. And once you get them to understand that, you said, and this is what you can do to influence that, and then it's the act game. And I mean, we're gathering data for this all the time, but based on my experience in China and covering other places in the world, I theorize that this will be more effective in an autocracy than in a democracy. And I'm happy to tell you why if anyone's interested. But
No, I mean, we just did another trip to China ourselves, my wife and I, and it's amazing what China has done. We went to Xiamen, absolutely stunning city, and my wife also went to Tibet and saw the consequence. And then you look at, India. So there are some things to say about autocracy if you want to get shit done.
I have a friend, one of my childhood friends, who's in charge of transport in Bristol, a city near here, like 500,000 or something. And one of the jobs he had at one point was cycle lanes. And I'd catch up with them every now and then. I'd say, how's it going? And say, oh, God. There's this one cycle, there's a stretch of about 200 meters through a park or by a park or something. There's this consultation we've had to do. Anyway, it's taken us about 2 years to literally build this like 100-meter or 200-meter stretch of
Yeah, yeah,
cycle.
yeah.
And as he was talking, I was doing a bit of good because I just read an article about this. I said, in those 2 years, Beijing alone created, I think it was like 100,000 kilometers of cycle lanes. Anyway, but yes, point taken.
Yeah, I mean, if you travel in India, you're on the highway, it's looking good, and then you come to a new province and the highway stops.
Yep.
And there's just, cows walking along this dirt road. So democracy gives the perception of you have something to say, but it's very slow, particularly if you want to get shit done. So it does have something where I promised that I would try to keep it to 60 minutes, but we're kind of over, and I'd like to kind of try to keep it with that. How can the people that are listening to this, I mean, we'll post a lot of the links that you're talking about. How can they help you?
Very simple. The most helpful thing, probably, particularly your listeners, can do is to join us.
Mm-hmm. So in most cities around, there are Facebook. So what do you look up?
Well, that's just one element of what we do. So when I say join us, I mean we have what the See-Through network is a global network of pro bono experts in a huge range of disciplines, from AI to carbon accounting to filmmaking to advertising, whatever, music. And there is a place, because of our convoluted storytelling method, there is a place for pretty much any skill, including someone with no skills who just wants to do something.
Right.
Or an early career person who wants mentoring from experts, or a retired person who wants to give back, or a mid-career person who wants to do something meaningful, or a mid-career person who's looking for specific things they want to learn on someone else's dime. All of these people in the network.
But those don't have to go to the Facebook page. They can go directly.
Oh, no. That's just a tiny example.
Yeah.
I mean, across. So this is why we have so there's see-through, to reiterate, see-through news, journalism, outreach, education projects, see-through games, video games, online games, see-through carbon accounting. So the deal for that is basically you participate in our pilots, seethroughcarbon.org, have a look at it, it's all there. And we will calculate your carbon footprint accurately, including scope 3, for free, except the only catch is it's transparent. We got to publish your results.
No, sure, yeah.
And then the last one, see through together, YouTube videos and podcasts and content, which is debate. That's how you get people on the first step of the cookie trail. That's the attention bit. So if any of that sounds like it's something that you do, and this sounds interesting to you, and you've got a few hours to contribute. So the other thing we haven't actually, interestingly, which I'm very happy about, got round to the money question, which is great because it means we can talk about the carbon thing. But this no bank account thing is obviously a great interest. And we started off assuming we need money. Of course you do, right? And 5 years on, it turns out that we don't yet. Now, we're, as always, pragmatic. We're not trying to prove anything here. But here's what we've learned. If people have a few hours in their life to contribute to something that doesn't earn the money, and everyone does, and if you would like to spend some of those hours measurably reducing carbon, there are thousands and thousands of organizations out there that do it. Only one of them, as far as we know, doesn't have a bank account. So, and again, I'm going to be pragmatic about this because I think a lot of your listeners are very pragmatic, business-like people. As I
hope so.
Used to be in business. I was a business journalist. I ran my own business for 20 years. Here's what I've learned. All business involves a certain amount of begging and storytelling.
Right. Yeah.
I would submit has spent 20 years in the beggingest business there is, independent documentary filmmaking.
Yes, true.
And I have done an informal colleague, my colleagues who are still working in it. I should say, and you can ask this to most people working in any charity or NGO, especially, but also even in business. You say, if you did a pie chart of the last 20 years of your waking hours, what proportion would be doing the thing that you're doing that it says on your job title, and what proportion is something to do with money? Which I mean pitching, fundraising, accounting, auditing, contract negotiation, all that stuff. Anything to do with money.
Understood.
And in my business, my old business of independent filmmaking, most people think about it quite hard and they say 10, 15% filmmaking, maybe 10% now I think about it.
Mm.
So the logic of this is if you remove the money element, even if you're immediately an order of magnitude more productive.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree.
That's
I
what
mean,
we found. It's not theoretical. We've actually found that. So
no,
even
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
if you can contribute a few hours a month, 100% of that time is going to be doing stuff.
Yeah.
If you believe in what we're doing. So
Because
that's the pitch.
a lot of our work is raising money for companies, and that pays the bills. But I tell all of the companies that knock on our door, don't engage us and don't take external money because the amount of time you have to spend researching, filtering, engaging, speaking, convincing, keeping them happy, and then getting rid of them is taking away from running your business. So there are examples of people who've never raised money and have done very well, MailChimp, Spanx. So I agree with you. If you can take that out, you save a lot of time.
Well, that we've found that's been the case so far. So if that appeal, and actually this becomes, I mean, I hesitate to use the phrase USP because we're not selling anything other than carbon reduction, but it is a USP. It's a different and better story than anyone else. But we're not trying to compete with other people who are doing it their own way. But what we are saying is, if you do volunteer for us, any time you have, we'll be doing the thing because there is no money.
Mm.
So the salary is zero, the budget is zero, the hours are up to you, as is the amount of carbon you reduce. that's that's the most useful thing that people can do. And we got the network's expanding all the time. We're getting to a very interesting inflection point now where we're starting to connect all these disparate things together
Oh, cool.
and can measure the results. So we have a newsletter, a weekly newsletter that's free.
So please send me all of the relevant links. So I'll put that out also in the podcast, go on Spotify and that. Robert, I admire your really long-term farming and green FSB approach of Trojan horse breaking in there and getting shit done, but actually building community long term.
We just evolved primates. We're social animals. So whatever the two principles that we have are radical transparency, because
Hmm.
whatever the problem is, transparency tends to be the solution. But also it does, we're people and people like dealing with other people. And whenever people accuse us of wanting to save the planet, I gently correct them and say, no, the planet's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the planet. We're just big fans of human civilization. That's all.
Yeah, it's a kind of George Carlin takeoff. Yeah, and it's funny that you call it radical transparency. That's actually the almost the same title of the book that I'm publishing called Radical Truth, and it's kind of a George Carlin analysis of the capitalist financial MBA business school investment community. Uh, Robert, this has been a joy. Thank you so much. I want to just sign off and thank everyone who's worked on this podcast behind the scenes. So, again, Robert, thank you so much for doing this. I also want to thank Sam, our producer, crypto genius, and ramen critic, Ricky, my absolute better half with no filter, Xi Jinping, our head of transparency and integrity, Vladimir Putin, our head of conflict resolution, Jeff Bezos, our human resources and full text compliance leader, Elon Musk, our humility coach, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Nobel Prize nominee for stupidity. Thank you so much for this. This is great. And let me just stop that.